one of the what will become one of the all-time iconic moments in UFC history, solidified in my mind the greatest women's fighter of all time. Let's take a look at it. Here's how it appears on FightfulMMA.com, and you see this slugfest unfold, and this is what did it. Cris Cyborg getting blasted by Amanda Nunes. Now, Cris Cyborg met a little bit of early success, and people don't usually go at Cyborg like that. Now, something I brought up often was before the Rousey fight became a real possibility, you didn't necessarily see Cris Cyborg fighting at range. She would get in and fight inside like that. But regardless of what you say about how the Cyborg-Rousey fight would have went, you do not want to fight a Ronda Rousey on the inside where you can be thrown, and Cris Cyborg was adapting her style, I think, for that, and became a way better fighter than we saw in her early days because of that. We would see her keep women at the end of her punches, but she didn't lose power as a result. So we would watch her back people to the cage and then finish them, which also happens to be Amanda Nunes' MO. What we haven't necessarily seen a ton of out of Amanda Nunes, except in the Rousey fight, is how she reacts to pressure. And when somebody steps forward to her now, we can pretty much expect her to stand in the pocket, throw down, not be afraid, even if she gets cracked. She got cracked by the most fearsome fighter in female MMA history, arguably MMA history, and was able to face plant her shortly after. What was your reaction to the start of the fight through the end of the fight? Because it didn't take long to experience.
I did not think it would be over that quickly. I think we've seen Amanda Nunes have a range of different fights. We've had the Valentina Shevchenko fights where she's dragged it out for the 5 rounds. We've had the Pennington fight where she's dominated for 4 rounds and then just finished her off. We've seen the Ronda fight, the Misha, and so on and so forth. I was stunned. I think the thing that people have forgotten, and think that the UFC have potentially dropped the ball on, is that after that win over Ronda, Nunes had the potential to be the hottest thing going. And then we had the big kerfuffle with the Valentina pullout, where people maybe suggested that she was afraid of her, which was ridiculous at the time and has proven to be so to this day. I think that people forget just how ballsy she is, because she's another fighter, just kind of like I hinted at it with Nathaniel Wood. He come on leaps and bounds. It doesn't matter if they've got a couple of losses on their record, because they're going to adapt, they're going to improve, they're going to change their game up. And it's the mystique of Cyborg that you need to get through, isn't it? It's getting past that idea that that you can't beat her, she's invincible, because now that law is gone. And I think that because the key for this one was that Nunes was coming up, and not many people realized that she was coming up to her natural weight, but she would probably have felt equally as comfortable if she would have down 135. And that helped her massively, because the pressure was off. It was one of those situations where, yeah, like Joanna, if she'd have won, amazing. If she hadn't have won, well, she's lost to kind of, a dominant fighter. I think the lack of pressure was important here. And just the fact that Cyborg, after she didn't get the finish, she could have taken a step back and maybe kind of seen how it was going, tried to play out a little bit, create some distance. But she got dragged into it. When she felt Nunes' power in return, that she saw red, and Nunes dragged her down, kind of hooked her in and finished her. And it was beautiful. Unbelievable.
It is amazing. Cris Cyborg's contract up in March. Have we seen the last of the UFC featherweight division? Because they got nobody besides Megan Anderson and Macy. Maybe. I think she's going back to 135. Who knows? They don't really have anybody. It's a celebrity division. I guess they can keep the championship technically and run it as the same celebrity division that it's always been. But then you look at women's bantamweight. You have Durandamy. You don't want to give her a title shot in any weight division because you never know if she'll fight or if she'll make it to the fight. Holly Holm's coming back next year, but how many times can you go to that well? Amanda Nunes has not fought Holly Holm, so there is that.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it's a problem we've all seen. It's one of those things where if you're a name and you string maybe one win together, then it's enough for a title fight. It's drastically different to you know, the likes of
especially if you're Holm. Sorry to interrupt you, but especially if you're Holly Holm.
Oh yeah, Holly Holm can do no wrong, and I understand the appeal. You know, she's always going to have that Ronda win under her belt. She does good numbers, but at the same time, I mean, can anyone say that they wouldn't want to see? And I know it's early to think about this, but Cyborg isn't over the hill by any stretch of the imagination. I imagine if they dangled the carrot of a rematch, I don't know if it was going to be immediate. I mean, there's no one directly for Nunes, because obviously I think Holm is the fight with Julia Budd been booked for Holm now. Is that set in stone? The next fight
with who? Aspen Ladd, you mean? Aspen Ladd. She is expected to face Aspen Ladd on March 2nd. But yeah, I would imagine if Cyborg wants to keep fighting in the UFC, that is, she will want her championship back. Who else is she going to fight?
Yeah,
I mean that's it.
I mean, the thing is, I think, like you said with Megan Anderson, that's the next person they'd want. But I think Anderson would need to get another emphatic win over Zingano in order to kind of get back to that point. I think, like you said, I think they'll keep it there, the title, and I think Amanda Nunes will sit back and kind of be like, you know what, just come up with ideas for me. And I wonder if it's going to be a Stipe Cormier situation where Nunes ends up getting booked with someone else, or hinted towards getting booked with someone else, and then Cyborg kicks up a fuss and says, "Whoa, what's going on? I'm the most dominant fighter in the division." If I had to hang my hat on it, I'd say that they do have rematch, but I don't think it's going to be for at least another 6 months.
Yeah, I would agree. And the UFC will have to renegotiate Cyborg's contract as a result, because it is expiring soon. But I look, and bless Megan Anderson. I think she's wonderful. I like her as a broadcaster and speak very highly of her. A wonderful woman. But when you say bring in the featherweights, who?
Yeah.
Who are you talking about? Some 37, 38-year-old women, some people who have 4 or 5 fights under their belt. I mean, people are telling me Felicia Spencer, she's got 5 fights. 5 fights, man. That's it. And bless her, get her in the UFC on that. I mean, maybe it'll work, but there are not a lot. You can't fill out a top 15 division with what's available, because Bellator beat you to the punch. Bellator got Julia Budd, who, by the way, Amanda Nunes has beaten before. So Amanda Nunes has now beaten every Bellator and UFC featherweight champion ever, including Cris Cyborg, Jermaine Durandamy, and Julia Budd.
When you put it like that.
By the way, she's beaten the 125-pound champion, Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina Shevchenko beat the greatest 115er of all time. Like, the dominance of Amanda Nunes is unbelievable. And it really puts in perspective, really, to take a Chael Sonnen quote, how good is Valentina Shevchenko? Because Valentina Shevchenko arguably beat Amanda Nunes. That's one I wouldn't mind seeing again in the future. That is, from what we see, an amazing fight. Yeah. But where does Nunes rank? Is she the greatest female fighter of all time?
That's the thing, isn't it? Because when we look back on this in 5-10 years, it's going to be a case of examining the body of work. But right now, coming into this fight, even though they didn't necessarily get the build towards it, it was the 2 best female fighters of all time. And it is 2 schools of argument, isn't it? You've got one set saying, well, yeah, Cyborg lost. She got beaten quite badly, but that's one fight. But then you've also got, you know, the people who say, well, no, it's a case of putting it best against the best. It's like when the rumors about GSP and Anderson were floating around, people were saying whoever won that fight was the greatest of all time because of the nature of their resumes. I would say that I think she is. I think that Nunes probably does hold that mantle now. But again, if they had a rematch and Cyborg beat her, where does that put us? Does it? Yeah. You know, it's tricky.
When I look at the resume, I see Amanda Nunes with wins over the greatest 125-pounder of all time that we know of, Valentina Shevchenko. Besides Nunes, the greatest 135-pounder that we knew of, Ronda Rousey, and the greatest 130 or 45-pounder that we've ever seen in Cris Cyborg. And when I see that and I do the math in my head, I'm thinking, well, that certainly is a recipe, at least for right now, as the greatest female fighter of all time. Then you throw in there Durandamy. She beat her too. Durandamy's still atop of the bantamweight division. as far as the rankings go. If she was more reliable, I think it'd be open and shut. de Randamie gets the title shot, but she's not reliable. We never know if she'll make it to fight night. Oh, by the way, Nunes has wins over Julia Budd, as I mentioned. Vanessa Porto at a point where Vanessa Porto was really good. You had Shayna Baszler, Sarah McMahon. So not only that, she's got wins over NXT champions.